David Liggett with Data Center Hawk, focused on cloud and co-location, data center industry trends, and dynamic market. I'm David Liggett with Data Center Hawk, and I'm with Andy Stewart, President and CEO of Evoque Data Centers. Andy, good morning. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, David. Very nice meeting you, and thanks for having me.
When we were talking before, we were talking about just what it must be like to take over an organization in the midst of one of the most challenging times we've had, not only in the data center industry but also the world. Talk about that. What's that been like to assume the position of CEO of Evoque during this time, and then talk about your background coming into the company.
Yeah, so no, it's been strange to say the least. I think at this stage in your career, oftentimes you kind of get a chance to pick kind of who you work for and who you work with, and you find that out by spending time in person. So the fact that my entire interview process was done over Zoom, I didn't get a chance or haven't had a chance to meet the Brookfield team, the owners of Evoque, in person yet. Haven't had a chance to go out to dinner with them. All of the normal things that you do to kind of build a relationship just hasn't happened. And then to be dropped into Evoque and to have to meet the team over Zoom and try to build a relationship that way, it's been a challenge. It's going well, but it's definitely been a new way of doing things.
So for those that don't know, talk about how you got involved in the data center industry starting out. Like, what was your first entrance into this industry?
Yeah, so I had the good fortune of working for a company that built businesses in the communications infrastructure space, and had been active in cable television and building out a large cable footprint. And then around 2007, 2008, had a chance to kind of go look for that next platform, and very quickly just gravitated towards the data center space. So all of the macro trends around outsourced IT, around the efficiency of third-party colo providers building and operating data centers for enterprise clients. So really started just diving into the industry as best as could. But as everybody knows, 2008 was the absolute worst time in history to do a deal. Nothing was happening. Banks weren't lending money. So despite our efforts for 2 years, we were unsuccessful kind of finding that platform. And eventually I was told to kind of roll up my sleeves. Let's do it one data center at a time if that's what it takes. And we called in a few favors with some of our banking partners over the years and ended up acquiring a business in Dallas, Texas called Colo 4. So I joined as the CFO in 2010, and that really became the basis for what evolved into TeirPoint. So we grew that through 5 acquisitions, and then recapitalized the business, brought in some larger outside investors, did 3 more transformational acquisitions, kind of 13 deals in total. And now TeirPoint is approaching $400 million in revenue and 40 data centers across the U.S. So from that single data center, that one idea in Dallas, now it's one of the largest operators in the U.S.
Well, that's incredible, and certainly positions you well to lead Evoque into this next kind of evolution of their company. Talk about what was exciting about the Evoque platform, what they've done over the last few years that really drew you to want to take on this position.
Yeah, so I think there were probably 3 primary things that got me really excited about the opportunity. The first being that in many ways it's a startup. Right, the business was carved out of AT&T just 18 months ago, so there wasn't this legacy of technical debt to deal with or old processes that were really kind of outdated. It really was in many ways a $1 billion startup. So that in itself was incredibly exciting, knowing that I could come in, be impactful on the strategy, on the culture, and the future. The second thing that was exciting was our backing. Brookfield is a $500+ billion alternative asset manager. They want to invest more around digital infrastructure. So knowing that I had a investment partner with a long-term horizon was exciting, and just their approach and their culture felt like it was a really good fit for me. So that was second. And then third was just seeing this. It's a platform of scale, but because we're only retail colo today, there is a real opportunity to move into more products and services over time. that it was very clean. We had have a large base of enterprise clients, and knowing that we now have the ability, or will develop the ability, to serve them in more kind of a hybrid IT fashion was exciting as well. And my background at TeirPoint was kind of perfect for that evolution into more a broader range of products and services beyond just colocation.
Andy, one of the trends we have seen in every market and in every country over the last 2 years has really been the pursuit of 15 to 20 companies that have really large data center IT requirements. And in our world, we call that the hyperscale market. Talk about Evoque's mindset behind that. Traditionally, the company has done retail colocation. Do you think that is a market that you will get into eventually, or will you continue to stick with, what you're doing today and maybe adding services on top of that?
Yeah, when you see the incredible growth in hyperscale and 50, 100, 200 megawatt campuses being built and being filled up, it's hard not to get excited about that opportunity. But that's actually not a good fit for Evoque. We want to have relationships with those 10 or 20 clients on a global scale. We think our data centers are a good fit for them for certain deployments, but those are deployments kind of under 10 megawatts. The opportunities that the Vantage or Cloud HQ or Compass are chasing in that 50 megawatt up range, that's just not a good fit for us. We think we can be differentiated by going after enterprise colocation and evolving into a hybrid IT services provider focused on the enterprise and focused on global enterprise. That's one of the differentiators we have is our global footprint, and the level of importance to that to enterprise clients we think is significant in an area we can actually carve out a bit of a niche to be successful.
Well, Andy, one of the things we talked about when we started this discussion was the fact that we're in the middle of a pandemic. And so I'm just interested in your thoughts on how you've seen that impact, whether it's Evoque or just the data center industry as a whole. What do you think the impact has been, and what do you think it will be moving forward, throughout the rest of 2020 and then into 2021?
Yeah, it's been far-reaching on a day-to-day operations standpoint. We operate data centers in Hong Kong and Singapore. So we're actually at the forefront of seeing the impact of the lockdowns on the data center industry. And what happened in just kind of a day-to-day manner was we were getting a lot more inbound calls for remote hand support. That our customers weren't able to go into the data centers, and they needed Evoque to actually serve as more of a partner to help monitor and manage their IT equipment. So we saw a five-fold increase in remote hands requests. And we were able to use that experience in Hong Kong and Singapore and get ready for what was coming in the US, where the same thing happened just a few months later. So a really dramatic impact on being more of a partner and a trusted partner for our clients as opposed to just the data center operator. That's kind of more micro. On the macro level, we have seen a bit of a slowdown in some of the activity because, cash is king. And in an environment like this where there's uncertainty, spending tens of millions of dollars on new hardware and equipment or making a multi-year decision that's going to require you to spend millions of dollars, people put a pause on that. There was a lot more work internally to figure out what was going on, how to make sure their employees stayed safe. We are starting to see that come back around, where people are getting more comfortable and starting to make decisions again. And we would expect that the second half of 2020 and the first half of 2021 catches us back up to where we thought we would be. So more of a kind of a pause in activity than a long-term downturn by any means.
Yeah, we just did a podcast, I think just a day or two ago, and one of the things we talked about was the demand within that enterprise segment, from the one cabinet to almost like 1 megawatt, how we felt like that's probably the area that certainly has been impacted. But, as things start to maybe get more clear, we believe that there will be a pickup in that, towards the end of the year and the beginning of next year as well. One of the things I'm interested in your input on, number one, because of your background with TeirPoint and what you've done in your career, but also just where you are now, and it's as it relates to connectivity. How enterprise users value connectivity today. We've seen, a tremendous increase in, the efficiency around cloud connectivity and some of the different ways now companies can utilize, different cloud providers into their. You mentioned the hybrid IT model, but talk about the importance of connectivity and how you're seeing that impact your customers today?
No, it's incredibly important, right? There's these decisions on where to put your IT equipment, how to manage your network, how to manage your public cloud. They aren't distinct decisions. They all kind of have to be considered together. So from a connectivity standpoint, the data centers that we bought were AT&T data centers. They were not highly connected, and we knew that going in. So over the last 18 months, we've had a concerted effort to bring many more carriers into our data centers. And it's important to remember, it's not just the number of carriers, it's having the right carriers, the right quality with the right global networks. So we've had a real focus on making our data centers carrier neutral and more carrier dense. And that translates into just a higher level of satisfaction for our customers. They want to have those different options as they're building out their network topology. And you mentioned the cloud on-ramps. We've also had great success bringing Megaport into our data centers. And it's not always that a customer needs to connect into AWS or Azure today, but they want to know they have a path to doing that within the next kind of 12 or 18 months. So just like SSA 16, dating myself, was a requirement and kind of a check the box years ago. Now making sure you have those cloud on-ramps is a basic requirement for running a retail colocation data center.
Yeah, I think the data center user today, I mean, you said it perfectly related to how, if you're a user, you have to think about the company that you're going to partner with, what they can do for you, not just today, but down the road. And I think that's such an important part that companies have to understand when they're, executing agreements with someone like Evoque or someone else is, how can they not only help my needs today, but help me with what tomorrow might bring?
Yeah, it's a great point. So flexibility, I think, is something that's really a topic that's coming up more and more. And it's flexibility of spend, customers not knowing we love when clients deploy across kind of multiple data centers with us for a number of reasons. But in many cases, those workloads are variable, and giving them flexibility to kind of increase spend in Singapore while simultaneously maybe decreasing in London. I think that flexibility is really top of mind. And then to your point, flexibility knowing that something is co-location today, but might need to go to public cloud tomorrow, and having that provider that's ready to support them in either case.
Yeah, when you think about the next 3 to 5 years in our space, from a trend perspective, and I'm thinking of as the data center users trying to figure out, the landscape, what the landscape will be, what I will have to deal with, what's maybe coming. What do you think are some of those trends that will impact, how those data center users are thinking about the future, moving forward?
It's really focusing on the application, right? Understanding the workload and where those workloads should best reside. There are many that belong in a data center, either because of latency, cost, performance, or it's applications that just don't lend themselves to being replatformed or refactored to go into public cloud. There are many others that are going to be distributed, that you need to have them running in multiple sites around the globe. And then when you start doing that, you bring in data sovereignty issues and other compliance challenges. And then others that belong and should be in AWS or Azure or GCP. So I think the biggest trend isn't, it's beating a dead horse. It is the hybrid approach to your IT environment. And that starts with looking at the applications and where they belong, and then making decisions about your infrastructure and your support and your processes and your compliance around that.
That makes sense. When you took on the role as CEO of Evoque, what were some of the first things that you did or have done to get started? I mean, what were the first things that you wanted to focus on to make sure that you hit the ground running as much as you could in the midst of the pandemic?
Yeah, so for me, I'm a numbers guy. I needed to dive into the numbers and understand not just the financials, but things about our data center. So what was the average number of clients and carriers per data center? What's the revenue per facility? What's the expansion potential and the economics around expanding those sites? doing kind of a detailed or deep dive on our customer segmentation, understanding the different verticals where we're successful, understanding which customers are kind of single site versus multi-site. When we make decisions, whether it's on the accounting side or go to market and strategy, we're going to use data to help us make those decisions better and not kind of go off of intuition or anecdotes. It needs to be kind of based in that underlying data. So I'm a reformed CFO. I had to dive in there and understand the numbers, and that's where I've spent a lot of time. But also, you need to understand kind of the voice of the customer and what your customers are telling you. So trying as much as I can to either talk to sales reps, talk to clients, and just hear from them why they chose Evoque and how we can better support them going forward. And I think if you can kind of marry those two things, marry the voice of the customer, what they're telling you, and what you're hearing from your sales force with the underlying data, you're just going to be kind of much better positioned for making the right decisions going forward.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, so going forward, what gets you most excited about Evoque and the industry that we're in? I mean, obviously you've been in this market for a long time and have tremendous amount of experience. But what gets you most excited about this space over the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Just the sheer amount of potential growth there is. Knowing that just how IT in the last decade has evolved from a cost center mindset to a growth driver for every kind of industry. And CIOs and CTOs realizing they need trusted partners to capitalize on that. Running a data center isn't a core competency for most companies. It is for Evoque. It's not for the law firm or even a technology startup shouldn't be worried about their data center. It's the applications that they're focused on. So the long-term growth is really what gets me excited. And then thinking about how Evoque can participate in that. We talked a little bit about hyperscale and hyperscale opportunity there. That's one area, but I'd say on retail colo and the cloud and managed services and helping clients evolve is where we'll end up spending more of our time and our resources.
Well, Andy, thanks so much for giving us an overview of where the company is today, how you're moving forward, and just your background. Congratulations on the role, and we're excited to see Evoque move forward in the future. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you very much.